Welcome back again, Game Yard family. Thank you so much for joining us for another video. We are extremely delighted that you have joined us for this video. Now, for this video, I will be predominantly looking on the second match that would have been played in the West Indies Breakout T20 League for 2025. That was played between the Trinidad and Tobago Legions and the Barbados Pelicans. But there is something that I really want to say before I get into the match analysis. Now, I would have published a video earlier today as it relates to some updates in relation to the ball tampering incident in that final match that was played between the Trinidad and Tobago Red Force and the Guyana Harpy Eagles in the West Indies Championship. And I mean, I've been thinking about it. I would have said in that video that I'm not going to say anything about it because the case is now before the courts, and I've been thinking really about it, and all I'm seeing really from this incident is just pure politics, right? And I'm just encouraging those two territorial boards that, get the politics out of the cricket. West Indies cricket is currently on life support, and the last thing you want, is for loggerheads between territorial boards, because that will affect the outcome of our cricket, right? So I'm encouraging the GCB, the Guyana Cricket Board, and the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board that they should amend their differences. I know it has been some long issues they have been having even before I was born, but I'm saying to you, the main product here is the cricket, right, and not the territorial board. So we need to work together in order for our cricket to be better on the international scene as well as better regionally, right? We would have seen the breakout league and nobody is really coming to the matches. The matches have been played in Trinidad, right? And when you look in the stadiums are empty even when Trinidad and Tobago Legions are playing. So there is something fundamental that is wrong with our cricket in the region, and we need to come together as territorial boards and seek to fix the issues rather than to allow it to spiral out of control, and then our cricket is affected on the international scene. All right, let us get into what we are here to talk about. Now, the Trinidad and Tobago Legions, they would have had a commanding 64-run win over the Barbados Pelicans to get their breakout league on the way, and that would have set a really good tone for them throughout the competition. Now, Trinidad and Tobago Legions, they would have had a shaky start. They would have lost Cephas Cooper, Camille Puran, and Captain Joshua Da Silva very cheaply. But the middle order was steadied somewhat by Amir Jangu. He would have made 32 from 34 deliveries, and he was supported by Navim Bidaisi. He would have made 24 from 23 deliveries. Also, Jit Gooley would have anchored the innings for the Trinidad and Tobago Legions. He would have made 38 from 27 deliveries, with 3 fours and a 6. Trinidad and Tobago innings would have gained some momentum from that ferocious cameo would have been played by Joshua James. He would have made 39 from 20 deliveries. He would have scored 4 sixes and a 4 in the process. And he did not finish there. He returned with ball in hand, and he would have taken 2 for 21 to help the Trinidad and Tobago Legions to win the match. So Barbados, in reply, I think they were unable to really gain any momentum in their innings. They would have lost wickets at regular intervals, and the Trinidad and Tobago bowlers really break the back of the innings early out. With Johann Layne with a stellar performance with 2 for 7 from his 4 overs, which included a maiden as well. The Trinidad and Tobago bowlers, they were very disciplined in hitting those good length, and most of them just keep a good line and length, and they were able to restrict the Pelicans to 101 runs. So scores in the match, Trinidad and Tobago Legions batting first, they would have made 165 for 8 from their allotted 20 overs. They would have had good support from Joshua James, who would have made 39 from 20 deliveries. Jit Gooley 38 from 27 deliveries. Amir Django 32 from 34 deliveries. The pick of the Barbados bowlers include Junior Sinclair, 2 for 17 from his 4, Dishan Motara, 2 for 22 from his 4, Ramon Simmons, 2 for 46 from his 4. Barbados Pelican, in reply, they would have been skittled out for 101 of 19.3 overs. Naheem Young would have made 33 from 36 deliveries. Lenika Boucher 23 from 17 deliveries. Zishan Mutara 11 from 17 deliveries. The pick of the Legions bowlers include Johann Layne, 2 for 7 from his 4, Navin Didaisi, 2 from 11 from his 4, and Mikel Bobia, 2 for 14 from his 3.3 overs. As I would have said earlier, Trinidad and Tobago Legions would have won the match by 64 runs. Alright, let us move right into our key metrics that we have been looking on since this tournament would have got underway. Remember, it is a development tournament, so we need to look on these metrics to see them game by game if we have been seeing any improvements as it relates to these metrics. The first one we will be looking on is runs scored. And as I would have said in my last video, the T20 game is made up of 3 phases, right? We have the power play phase, which runs from overs 1 to 6, the middle overs phase, which runs from 7 to 15, and then we have the last over phase, which runs from 16 to 20. Some people call it the death over, that runs from 16 to 20 overs. Now, as it relates to the power play, as a benchmark, because the truth of the matter is we have to benchmark our key metrics based on international standard, because that is the standard we want to reach, right? So as it relates to international standard, for the power play, 45 to 60 runs is a good total in the power play. That's international standard, and we would have seen where these two teams would not have reached that standard. Trinidad and Tobago Legion would have made 25 in their first 6 overs, while Barbados Pelicans would have made 26. As it relates to the middle overs, right? Trinidad and Tobago Legions, they would have increased their overall total during this phase, and they would have scored 64 runs, right? The international standard or the benchmark says that a good total for the middle overs would be between 60 to 80 runs. They would have scored 64 runs, right? And Barbados Pelicans would have scored 56 runs. As it relates to the death overs now, the international standard would have suggested that 50 to 70 runs in this 5 over band would be a good total. But Trinidad and Tobago Legions would have scored 76, which is outside that international standard, and I think that would have allowed them to win this game. And overall, they would have scored 165 runs. In terms, going back to the death overs, the Barbados Pelicans would have only scored 19 runs in the death overs, and that would have cost them the game, right? Total runs based on international standard would be a good total would be between 155 to 210. The Trinidad and Tobago Legions, they would have scored 165 runs. right? Barbados, and they would have fallen within that band of international standard. As it relates to the Barbados Pelicans, they would have fallen short of the international standard with only 101 runs, right? As it relates to the international standard, Barbados need to improve in their next match in all phase of the game. They would have fallen short in all phases of the game, and that would have be the reasons why they would have lost the game. Right? Trinidad and Tobago Legions will need to improve on their power play performance in the next game. In terms of wicket falling, right? As it relates to power play, the international standard says 1 to 2 wickets would be good, because as you know, you don't want to lose too many wickets in the power play. That will affect your momentum going into the middle overs and also at the death overs. So you want to have wickets in and going into the middle overs. Right? In the power play, Trinidad would have lost 3 wickets, Barbados would have lost 3 wickets. So both teams would have been out of the international standard band. In terms of middle overs, right? The international standard suggested losing 2 to 3 wickets in this phase would be good. Trinidad and Tobago would have lost 3 wickets, while Barbados Pelicans would have lost 5. Again, you see where Barbados would have fallen outside the band. Right? In the death overs, the international standard suggested that losing 1 to 2 wickets in this phase would not be that bad. Trinidad and Tobago Legions would have lost no wickets, and Barbados Pelicans would have lost only 2. Right? So both teams would have fallen in the band where the death overs are concerned. So in terms of total dismissal, the international standard would have suggested that in a 20 over match, losing 4 to 7 wickets would be ideal, and or even lower, right? But a good amount of wickets to lose by the international standard is anywhere between 4 to 7 wickets. Right, Barbados Pelicans would have lost all their 10 wickets, so they would have fallen outside the band. But the Legions would have, lost 6 wickets, which would be within the international band. Right. So, as it relates to boundaries scored, right, in terms of the power play, the international standard would have recommended that anywhere between 6 to 8 boundaries scored in the power play would be a good amount of boundaries, right? And both teams we would have seen would have fallen outside of that international standard band. They would have scored 3 and 4 respectively. That's the Trinidad and Tobago Legions and the Barbados Pelicans. So both teams need to improve in terms of their boundary percentage in the power play. So both teams will need to improve in their next game as it relates to boundaries scored in the power play. In terms of the middle overs, right, the international standard would have recommended that 8 to 12 boundaries would be good during the middle over phase. Both teams would have scored 5 boundaries, so they would have fallen outside of the international standard band. Right, in terms of the death overs, 8 to 12 boundaries in this band would be good. The Legions would have scored 8 boundaries, while the Pelicans would have only scored 1. Right, so the Legions, they would have fallen within that international standard band. Right, so total boundaries in the game recommended by the international standard, and that would be anywhere between 22 to 32 boundaries in the game would be a good amount of boundaries. Both teams would have fallen outside of the international standard band in terms of boundaries scored. Trinidad and Tobago Legion would have scored 16 boundaries, and Barbados Pelicans would have scored only 10 boundaries in their innings. So both teams need improvement in terms of their boundary percentage score. Right? Let us jump on now to dot ball percentage. In terms of the Trinidad and Tobago Legions, they would have had 50 dot balls in their innings out of a total of 120 legal deliveries. So their dot ball percentage would have been 42%. In terms of the Barbados Pelicans, they would have scored 65 dot deliveries and out of a total of 120 legal deliveries. So they have a dot percentage of 54%. And the recommendation from the international standard would be that ball percentage between 20 to 30% would be ideal. So both teams made improvements as it relates to that ball percentage going into the next game. All right. What I can say though, Trinidad and Tobago in this match, they would have achieved some of the international standard. So they need to just make improvements on the other areas that they would have fallen outside of the band in the next game. Barbados Pelican need an overall improvement in their game going into the next game. Before I finish this video, I want to talk a little bit about Johann Layne, right? I believe Johann Layne has been bowling really well this season. He did not have a good Super 50 tournament, but he was exceptional in the West Indies Championship, and he would have started well in this breakout league. I would be very disappointed if I do not see Johann Layne in that 18 squad scheduled to play South Africa A next month, right? As it relates to Johann Layne numbers, in terms of the Super 50 Cup, he would have played 5 matches, he would have bowled 34 overs, he conceded 185 runs with 4 wickets at an average of 46.25 with an economy of 5.44, right? His best figures would have been 2 for 40 in the Super 50 Cup. As I said, he did not have a good season in the Super 50 Cup. However, he would have been much better in the West Indies Championship. He would have played 6 matches, bowled 142.5 overs, conceded 429 runs with 27 wickets to his name, and he would have taken the wickets at an average of 15.88 with an economy of 3 runs per over. That economy is really good, right? And his best figures would have been 6 for 30. Right, and in the breakout league so far, he would have played 1 match, and he would have bowled 4 overs, conceded 7 runs, and he would have taken 2 wickets at an economy of 1.75 with his best figures of 2 for 7. Right, so Johann Layne, he is. I think I really would want to see him in traveling with the West Indies team. I know that we have a good cohort of bowlers currently in our test setup. I'm not saying that he should be in the test setup. I will never say that, right, at this point, right? But where development is concerned, I think he needs to be traveling with the West Indies team. He has a good action. He swings the ball. He gets some lateral movements off the pitch. And he is very tall, so he will get some, extract some bounce out of the deck when no other bowler will extract bounce out of the deck because of his height. And also, he has good line and leg, and he hit the deck really hard, right? So, he's a good prospect for us, but one for the future, I would imagine. And also, Jedediah Blades, also we should be keeping tabs on Jedediah Blades as well. Especially for ODI matches, and also Kevlan Anderson and Joel Andrew. These players should be close to the West Indies senior lineup so that they can be developed properly and get some exposure. Right? Do not want these players to end up like Shimran Etmaya, who only play franchise cricket, and we want to make use of players, right? So I think we should keep them close and keep tabs on them and encourage and ensure that they develop, properly. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this video, and we will see you in the next one. Belo.